right. I think we're live here, so I hope you all can hear me. I apologize for the delay. I had to go get my moving truck. That was scheduled for 10 a.m. It is now 1:13 p.m. So it's 3 hours later than that was supposed to take. I thought it was going to be like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. It just took forever. We didn't get there at 10, but maybe a little bit later. But it was just an absolute nightmare. And then like driving this big fucking moving truck all through like LA traffic. It's not pleasant. It's also like insanely hot here. I think it's hot everywhere right now, right? Like even Europe is having record highs. It was either yesterday or the day before yesterday was the hottest day ever on record in Paris. So yeah, I had to turn my air conditioner off because it's like right by where I have my setup, and it was just blowing right into the microphone. So if I pass out from the heat, uh, that's why. So how was everyone doing on this fine Friday afternoon or evening or whatever it is, wherever you are? Yeah, I'm sure in the Mediterranean it's really bad. Yeah, Russia. I'm sure Russia is probably very humid. I was there for the first time in July or August or something, and it was miserable in St. Petersburg and Moscow. It was like so hot. Yeah, everyone like my whole timeline is just filled with miserable people from all over the world, just like complaining about the weather. At least it's something we can all agree on. It sucks. Um, but I guess everybody in the southern hemisphere is probably happy. The Australians, South Americans. Yeah, I mean that was nothing. That was nothing against St. Petersburg. It was just talking about like the heat, because it was just so humid and awful. Yeah, working in an office with an air conditioning system is also quite complicated, right? Because it's like you need a jacket. Like you said, you need a jacket when you're indoors, but then you go outdoors and it's just like sweltering heat. It it does. I don't know. It's I guess it's the same as when it's freezing outside and you go between like a really warm building inside and then going to the outside. It's just like shocking. I hate it. I hate all extreme weather. I just wish it was like 22 degrees or 73 Fahrenheit like constantly. Then I'll be happy. Yes, I'm dying now. We are all dying right now. Um, but that's probably why we've decided to wait to load the truck until the evening, because it's the middle of the day now, and we would just get miserably sunburnt and yeah, probably die from heat exhaustion or something. So yeah. All right. So This is the first future Friday live stream. And sort of, I mean, the basic plan with this was to just kind of give you guys a glimpse into kind of what's going on in my world in terms of, uh, you know, business, music, whatever kind of stuff's going on in that realm. Uh, I mean, as I guess most of you have noticed, I am kind of in the process of moving halfway across the world. Alex when is asking, when do you move to Austria? We are moving on Wednesday, so that doesn't leave us a whole lot of time to get finished, nor does it give me a whole lot of time to, work on stuff. Um, However, being busy is no excuse to not take care of the stuff that you need to take care of, and I am trying desperately to get this deluxe edition uh, of the album manufactured, and uh, get the well, yeah, just so it's like get the artwork manufactured, get the actual discs manufactured, make sure all the masters come through and that the masters are consistent with the other tracks, because you know not only is this the album that I wrote, together over the course of like a couple of years, it's also the singles that I wrote and released over a couple of years. And it's just like there's a whole lot of um, differences in terms of the way those things sound, like LAX and Love Like Lies and Angels and Kings all sound very different, um, even though they're part of like the same trilogy, right? So it it's trying to find some sort of consistency, cohesiveness between all of the tracks in order to make sure like it all flows and it all works and all that kind of stuff. Um, so there's a lot of moving parts, and yeah. uh, so when you're trying to make a CD, physical CD, you have to worry about um, the artwork itself. So I'm dealing with R. McDavliconian, who is this just amazing artist who did all of the photography and design and all that kind of stuff. But now he's got to like extrapolate the original artwork that we did for the single disc, and then like make that different, make it sort of widen the universe. And so I'm kind of uh, not necessarily overseeing, but making sure everything gets done on time, because the deadline is actually Wednesday, the day that we move, which makes it all the more fun. But then on the other side, I'm also dealing with technical stuff. So I'm working with Christian Wiesenberg from Rotersand. He's the guy that does all the mastering. So what he has to do is he has to master a brand new track, make sure that it sounds consistent with all of the existing singles, so that there's some flow and uniformity to the bonus disc, disc two, and then he's got to rearrange all of the tracks and create what's called a disc image, and that is like a file that is basically sort of all of the information contained on a master CD disc. But it's just like in the past you would create a real file and you'd have to mail it to the pressing plants, but you don't have to do that anymore. Um, you can just send them, just a file. But so I need to make sure that he's doing that, and and yeah. So and then I also then I have to deal personally with the manufacturing plant, uh, who, as I'm sure most of you well know already, know that I'm kind of at my wits' end with them with how long they took with the vinyls. But they're saying it's only going to be a 3-week turnaround with these CDs. I'm really hoping that's the case because obviously the plan is to get them uh, before the tour kicks off. We're at about 6 weeks ahead of time for the tour. They're saying 3 weeks for pressing. I'm giving, yeah, by the time we deliver everything, it'll be 5 weeks ahead of time. So it gives me like a 2 week buffer, which doesn't make me super comfortable. But you just gotta do your best and hope it all works out. So that is what I am doing. But what I'm also doing, I'm sure you guys can see, or at least I hope you can see, this picture in picture, which has 4 different master versions of Angels and Kings loaded up. And essentially, it's up to me to listen to all of them, uh, pick apart the nuances of each master, and decide which one goes to press. Now, I have already listened to these, but I'm curious if you guys will be able to pick up on it. So, forgot to make sure that the audio from Logic was running through. It should be. All right. Independent music, easy stuff, right? Says Alex. Yeah. Independent music is so easy. But man, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. All right. So, yeah, I've listened to all of these. I know which one is my favorite, but I'm curious what you guys think. I'm trying to think if I should just play this like all the way through, or if I should just like A and B them. I mean, I guess I can just play it all the way through. So, all right. So, for those of you who don't know, this song is called Angels and Kings. It's the third part of the LAX trilogy that I started in 2015. It's basically kind of like tells the story of my return back home and, kind of my subsequent disillusion with being here. And I wrote this song, Angels and Kings, right after Love Like Lies, or even probably simultaneously to Love Like Lies, which is kind of accepting that things aren't ever what you want them to be. But, I just didn't feel like the song was strong enough to be a single. It's meant to be sort of consumed in the 3-part trilogy. And so when you go from like LAX to Love Like Lies to this, I think unless you understand the story, it doesn't have the same kind of impact. And I had Rhythm Control finished and ready to go, and I just thought it was a much better, it would be a much more successful song, and I didn't want to sink thousands of dollars into releasing this track just to have it like fail. So, yeah, this is Angels and Kings. It's interesting.
I struggle with fate. Late, not too late to give life purpose. Can I be it's dragging me down. Oh, I'm lost and I know it, and I'm feeling left out of the life that was promised. Oh, I can hide it away. I still love you. Praise, do I need your praise for my life's work? Oh, if I fail, it means nothing anyways. Time to think, then maybe it's all okay. It's a fight for eternity, just to be who we wanna be. Why, oh, is it dragging me down? Am I lost? I don't know if I'm feeling left out of the life that was promised. I can hide it away. Do I love you? I was never what you wanted. I won't wait for you. It's not dragging me down. I'm not lost and I know it. I'm not feeling left out of the life that was promised. It's not dragging me down. It's my life and I own it. No halo or crown. Decide where I'm going. How can I get away? I don't love you.
All right, so there you go. That's that is Angels and Kings. I think that's the only song from the deluxe edition that the patrons haven't heard. You guys, yeah, like I said, it's it's very very different. It's a slow ballad. It's a waltz, right? It doesn't have any screaming. It's just very very different from kind of like everything that I've done before. But it was it was meant to be that way because the whole trilogy is essentially like LAX, which is coming back home, and sort of symbolically returning home. You're trying to return to the past, and so that's why the song sounds like old aesthetic perfection. So it's like intentionally trying to recreate the past, and lyrically, it's talking about how that's right, like it's impossible. It's a lie, and then Love Like Lies is sort of evolving, but very very bitter and angry about the way things have become and turned out, and then you have this, which is sort of just like accepting who you are, accepting things, accepting who you are, accepting things the way they are. So it's intentionally supposed to be this kind of very drastic change between the beginning and the end of the story. And so the end of the story is just really not caring. And Angels and Kings is an interesting name because uh, the Angels are a baseball team here, and the Kings are a hockey team. And there was a club that was called Angels and Kings that was like too cool for me when I got here, so it's a place that I never got to go. So that's kind of the why the song is called that, and I think it really works. Also thematically with the fact that a lot of these songs are talking about yeah themes of religion and what's it called when it's related to kings? What is it? Not a. It's whatever. It doesn't matter. It's too hot. My brain is fucking fried. But yeah, so I think that it all sort of like ties everything together. And there's a lot of subtle things that are there just kind of for me, but hopefully people get it. I don't know. We'll see. It doesn't really matter. All that really matters to me right now is the fact that like this song is coming out finally, because it's just been sitting on a hard drive for like since 2016, 17, so it was like 2 or 3 years. Yeah. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Seems you think it's all right. Uh, I'm quite proud of it. I'm quite happy with it. Um, but that is just one of the 4 masters we have here. Um, so, Joe Let's is texting me. What do you want, Joe? What Joe is texting me. Joe just texted me a Russian flag. Why are you so anxious? Right. So we've got 4 different masters here, and so the trick is to A and B them and sort of decide what you think is best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play. I need answers. I don't have answers. And I'm doing a live stream. I will talk to you in 20. Okay. So I'm going to play little bits of each of them and see if you guys can kind of like distinguish the differences. I usually hear them immediately, but obviously it takes time to kind of train your ears. But let's see. All right, so this is version 1. All right, so let's go. Version 2. Version 3. That one is actually harder to tell the differences in. Maybe these are not the right earphones for this. take my trusty studio headphones. These are these started out gray and they are now yellow. They're terrible, but they still sound good. Let's see what you guys think. Oh, no. No opinions yet on the different versions? All right. Well, here. I'll just kind of give you my take on it. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the differences between these two. Listen to the top, so like the higher frequencies, and listen to how the bottom end, like the lower frequencies, sit together and the differences between them. So, does anybody hear anything? Aha. Anna's right. Number one sounds clearer somehow. That's correct. I thought the second one was toned down. See? Okay, now you guys are getting it. The first one is a bit brighter, which means it has a little bit more higher frequencies. And the separation between the higher frequencies and the lower frequencies is much more defined, right? So it's like the higher frequencies, which is just mainly like the vocals and the little sparkly synths, that kind of feels like it's floating above the lower part, which is just like the drums and the bass, and actually the sort of synth pad, the gated thing is like and Elodia is correct when she says the second one is toned down. It's more all squished together. There's less definition between that top and bottom layer. So listen for that again. That second one is just more focused towards the center, and the first one is like has this kind of feeling to me. This is the way that I visualize it, and sometimes it helps to visualize it. Or at least it helps me. Check you guys out, turning into engineers already. All right. So now version 3 is tough because there's 3 different versions of it. Or version 3 is difficult, and there are 2 versions of it. So right, so that's version 3. So now here's version 3.1. I don't like either of these. I mean, they're not bad, but like when I hear them, I'm just like immediately like, no. So let's hear version 1. Version 3. Right. Doesn't sound as clear as the first one. That's correct, because the first one has the higher frequencies which cut through and give it, we use words like brightness, sparkle, whatever sort of like conveys this feeling of, the lighter, higher elements. Number 3 has more echo. Interesting. Let's have a listen. That's an interesting point. So mastering does not add any. They're called spatial effects. So spatial effects are things like echo, reverb, delay, that stuff. Mastering is simply the application of compression in different frequency areas. So I don't know if it makes sense to give a lesson on what a compressor does right now, but just basically it limits the volume of certain frequencies, or actually it limits the volume of a signal. And so when your signal comes in, if you have a sound that goes above what's called the threshold here, the compressor pushes it down below the threshold. So that's what keeps music like sounding even. So it's like if you're singing and talking, you have like more volume when you get louder, or like you get less volume when you speak lower. A compressor helps smooth out those volume differences so you have a consistent level. And with mastering, what you're doing is running just the whole stereo track. You don't have any multi-tracks or anything like that. And it has multiple compressors in multiple frequency bands, they're called. So in multiple areas. So you have multiple compressors all running on the same track, and you're just saying, okay, this compressor works in the bass area, and this compressor works in the higher area. And then they all sort of help create this sort of balanced tone. But when you drive the compression more, you make the higher volume parts quieter because they're hitting the threshold, and that gives you more opportunity to bring the things that are quieter louder, because the more you turn up the volume, the more it's just squishing the incoming signal, and you can hear more of what's in there. You're actually hearing more of the echo, more of the delay, because all of the brighter stuff is getting, all of the louder stuff is getting compressed and made quieter, which makes the delays and echoes, which were initially quieter sounding, brings up their volume. So you're actually quite right about that, Anna, but it's funny why you're right about that. Is this compressor something like saving a file as a JPEG or PNG? No, because the compressor is what you're talking about, like saving a file as a JPEG or PNG, that's more like MP3 versus lossless or WAV, right? So it's like it's actually removing information from the file in order to make it smaller. The compressor, in a musical sense, is just making louder parts quieter, but the information is not removed and the quality of the files are not compromised, if that makes any sense. So it's like no matter how many compressors you put on the file, it won't go from like 88 megabytes to, you know, 325 kilobits. It's a different thing. So I'll tell you my favorite after we listen to 3.1. So what this is the compressors are driven harder, so those quieter parts are made much more obvious, but it's compressed so much that it almost creates distortion. There's like harmonic distortion in there. You can hear it probably around 400 to 600 hertz. So that's that sort of it's got a little bit more like in there, which I don't like. So if you hear it in the vocals, it creates this weird sound. And this version, I think, sounds quite like number 3. So 3.1 sounds a lot like 3, but it's pulled back on that distortion just a bit, so it's not hitting it as hard. You hear it really on the I wait. You hear it there. So, yeah, I don't like version 3. So, going back to version 1, so it's still got that really big sort of like thumping, enormous sub down below in the musical area. It's like that's compressed a lot. That's really punchy and big, but the vocals and the higher frequencies float above it, so they just feel like two separate elements that work in harmony together, as opposed to being either smashed together or just working against one another. I think that version 2 is much like version 1, but it's a more subtle version of it. It plays it a little bit more safe. It's like not as extreme in terms of the low and high separation. And then you go to 3, which just fucking like hits the compressor even harder. And then I think 3.1, he realized he hit it a little bit too hard and backed off a bit. So, the answer to your question is version 1 is absolutely my favorite. I think it's great. I love this separation between the two sort of elements of the song, or the two like sort of frequency bands of the song. I think this master is great. when you listen to it in a big system with like subs and shit, like the bass is really like it's like rattles your brain around, but it doesn't get in the way of the vocals. Like sometimes what really bothers me about Billie Eilish's tracks is that like there's so much like bass in there, and it creeps in to the vocal frequency spectrum, and then it's like so the bass hits and then the vocals cut out, and you're just like, ugh, come on. Um, but somebody like Lord, she's got also like this shit ton of sub bass, but there's so much definition between the sub bass and the vocals. They never cancel each other out or they never get in each other's way. I think Katy Perry's "There's No Going Back." What is that song? Dark Horse is just like this perfect example of like this like window shattering, room shaking bass that doesn't get in the way of like the pretty sort of melodies that are going on top of it. So it's like these are the artists that I'm listening to when I'm like trying to mix these songs to get this this kind of vibe because I think it's great. I think it's really really cool. Yeah, I mean that was probably one of the things that bothered me the most about Billie Eilish was just that like it's so much bass that you can't you can't tell what else is going on in the song, especially like in your car. Like yeah, okay, on your laptop, your little like Bluetooth speakers, it's one thing, but like in your car, it's just like you put on a Billie Eilish song, it's like, and then you hear a little bit of talking underneath it, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, so that's what I'm up to. It's what I've been trying to take care of the last week or two. Um, the artwork should be done by today, and then we're just waiting on the on all of your names to come in. So I'll do another post. It seems people really like the, get your name in the liner notes thing, which is really cool. I didn't realize it would be such a conversion tool. I guess it's like say a way of saying like getting people to sign up for Patreon. Uh, it's been the thing that like seems to work the best, which is interesting. I didn't really expect that, but I'm glad something is inspiring people to sign up, and I'm glad I can do something that makes people feel special and like they're a part of the album. So yeah. So is there any questions you guys have before I return to the utter hell that is moving across the world? This will be my last live stream actually before the move. It's the last live stream from this house. It's the end of an era. Okay, yeah, this is a good question. So with the name thing on Patreon, I'm using my artist name, but you can probably see the addresses for the letters as well our real names. Yes, I do see real names. We do use the real name section because otherwise, uh, yeah, otherwise we're just printing mostly like 75% pseudonyms and internet handles, and I think people really want to have their actual name printed in the liner notes, and I think that's I think I also agree. I think it's better to use the real names because uh, I don't know, Gothic Barbie 666 is probably not how you want to go down in history on a on somebody's album. Yeah, we just export a what's it called? Not an Excel file, a whatever the other one is. Oh, it is Excel. Yeah, we just exported an Excel document, and it's got like all of the fields. So it's got like the handle, and then it's got the real name, and then it's got all this other stuff that we cut out. But yeah, yeah. Marilla was sad because she shared an account with her boyfriend, which meant her only his name was actually printed uh, on the liner notes. And I understand that that's frustrating, but there's just unfortunately it's like when there's like 500 names, um, we just have to use whatever the Excel sheet spits out. So please make sure that the name that you have uh, in Patreon is as your like when it says your real name. Uh, Please double check that it's the name that you want printed in the liner notes. I think everybody hates their names at some level. At least most of us. I don't like my name. I should have been named Kevin. I would have made a much better Kevin. I have the cat next to me. She's probably very hot. The Pizziaca. All right. So, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm sorry that I was late. Uh, Hope you forgive me. Things have been, yeah, quite hectic here recently. But I think it's really, really, really. Um, it's Muka. Your last name is Muka? That's pretty fucking cool. Um, I do. I do know what Muka means. Um, yeah, so I think it's really, really important that despite how chaotic things get, that it's just like we do the live streams and all this kind of stuff because it's so easy just to be like, oh no, I don't have time, and then you get like backed up and like, oh, I owe people 3 live streams. No, I'm always gonna find a way to make the time now. And I think having this sort of consistent schedule makes a lot of sense. And I'm thinking about like maybe at the beginning of each month post what the schedule is going to be just to kind of like remind people, even though it's in my calendar. Definitely want people to have time and the ability to sort of plan for it if they want to be a part of it. So, yeah, thank you all for hanging out. I hope you like the new song. I hope you learned something a little bit about how to listen to masters, and maybe you can start picking apart like some of your favorite music and thinking about like, oh, hey, you know, uh, does this sound good? Why does this sound good? How could this sound better? All this kind of stuff. If you give a shit, I care about it. But yeah. All right, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Have a lovely weekend. And the next time we talk, I will be in Austria. So these will be done on local European time. So you guys take it easy. Talk to you soon.